Hello people of the internet, welcome to episode 12 of Paint to Life, the YouTube channel where we take tiny plastic miniatures, throw some acrylic paint on them, and breathe life into them with storytelling so that you might learn something new on the subject or take it as your own for your own campaign. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so we can help grow the channel. If you're a returning visitor, welcome back. You might notice I might have lost some hair. My wife got sick of seeing that quarantine hair, and I think after the last episode she had enough, so chop chop. I'm GMA Tank. Let's get painting. Okay, last week we painted the D&D Collector Series Zombie Tyrannosaurus. The link to that episode can be found right here if you missed it, if your device supports it. So check it out if you missed it. Today, we're back to dragons. Metallic dragons. The brass dragon, to be precise. Brass dragons are the weakest of all metallic dragons, and they're the most benign of all dragons in general. They love to talk to the exclusion of most else. They love to engage friends and foes alike in hours of long-winded conversation. Like a certain GM you might know. It would not be unusual for a brass dragon to be proficient in hundreds of languages. And when they're born, they actually have the ability to communicate with animals, so that even if there are no sentient creatures nearby, they can always talk to something. Physically, the brass dragon was highly distinctive. From below, outstretched wings formed a triangular shape as they were attached from the body all the way to the tail. The shape of its head was also quite distinctive, as it had a flat, large, curved plate that extended from its eyes and cheeks on either side of its head and curved up upwards into 2 points. Brass dragons rarely got into combat, preferring of course to talk. If they considered a creature threatening, they might first try and subdue it with the sleeping gas that they can emit, in addition to their fire breath, which can be targeted into a single ray as opposed to like the cone of fire that other fire-breathing dragons might emit, like a gold dragon or a red dragon. Brass dragons were native to arid regions, such as deserts, and they would also overlap with blue dragon territory. They prefer to make their lair in high spires or the peaks of rocky outcroppings. A brass dragon's lair is well constructed and quite extensive, with many twisting corridors to confuse and discourage hostile intruders. The centerpiece of any brass dragon's lair was the grand conversation hall, where it would host the majority of its visitors and guests. Said typical lair would also include an elegant foyer, a gallery where the artwork that it loved to collect would be kept, a sleeping chamber, storage chambers, and several small escape tunnels known as bolt holes, because the dragon was so small and diminutive it could crunch down and then escape through those were the lair to be attacked and invaded by, say, a blue dragon. If you encounter a brass dragon in your travels, remember that despite being good aligned, they are still dragons and therefore have a superiority complex. But knowing that they like to talk, let them talk to you, listen to what they say, and when it's your turn, throw some of that back at them so they know that you are paying attention. After many hours of this back and forth, they'll consider you a friend, and you'll be able to tap into that great knowledge base they've collected over the many years of talking with all kinds of different creatures. Finally, they also like sentient weapons, that is, a weapon that has a soul inside or some kind of artificial intelligence, in addition to things like genies that are bound to lamps. They like these items because they can have conversations with the consciousness in both instances, and both are bound to the object and unable to get up and walk away when they're tired of talking to the dragon. But who is our brass dragon that we're painting tonight? Far away in the distant desert nation of Calimshan was a city called Calimport. A huge place measuring almost 6 miles from east to west and 3 miles from the coastline to the northern border. 2 brothers, Rashad and Usama, were living on the impoverished streets, stealing whatever they could get by to survive, despite the risk to life and limb, because the penalties for theft in Calimport were quite gruesome indeed. At night, from their communal slum in the docks, they would watch ships come from all around, such as Baldur's Gate and Waterdeep, and they would dream of what that kind of lifestyle would be like to have that kind of wealth and security. Now, one morning, Rashad noticed a small brass cube floating in the salt water by the docks. He retrieved it and kept it a secret from his brother. That day, he spent all day attempting to solve this 3D puzzle cube, and Finally, he was successful, and it triggered a magic mouth spell, which summons a phantom-looking mouth, which is pre-programmed to say something in a language that the user can understand. So this magic mouth spoke, "Luminous atop the spire, travel with at least two. Tell to me a desire, through sacrifice it shall be true." So Rashad asked around with his friends and colleagues in Calimport near the docks and asked what the spire could mean, if anyone had any idea. And he finally heard that it sounded like a large rock foundation about a 3-day walk west of the city. Rashad convinced his brother Usama that he had overheard some sailors talking about some buried treasure near this spire. So with that, both brothers agreed to travel and try and find it. The walk was safe enough, being so close to the city, and within 2 days, the brothers saw the enormous rock structure in the distance on the horizon jutting up from the sand. They were close. Despite being close, the sun was setting, and Rashad wasn't paying attention and walked into some quicksand. Luckily for him, Usama grabbed him and pulled him out before he got stuck. That night, they slept with the silhouette of the spire against the sky, tempting their dreams with all kinds of curiosities of what treasures they might find there. So the next morning, the brothers made it to the base of this massive spire. I mean, it was about a mile wide, about 350 feet high, and after completing 2 perimeter sweeps and finding nothing, Usama decided maybe it was a bust and they should just head home. It was at that point that Rashad revealed to his brother the existence of the puzzle cube and told him that it was this that brought him here, and that somewhere, possibly up there, was a source of potentially great wealth. He convinced his brother that they should either succeed or die trying, because he was not interested in making their way back home to die in the streets of Calimport like dogs. Now, the climb to the top was steep and extremely dangerous, but they took their time and persevered. Without any equipment, they got close to the top, and as they did, certain holes started to become apparent that weren't visible from the ground, and they got into one of those holes. Following this pathway in this tunnel, they emerged into a foyer with skylights in the ceiling that allowed light to enter this cave, and what they saw in that light, they wouldn't believe with their own eyes. A marble fountain with pristine waters coming out of it, where men and women were bathing in each other's arms. The air had the sense of frankincense and myrrh, the kind of smell that you would get if you walked past the palace ward inside Calimport. They made their way into a gallery with exquisite works of art on the wall, weapons and armor on display, as well as men fighting and practicing sword fighting with one another, while others were painting with beautiful exotic pigments and colors on canvas, completely comfortable with their presence. They were led to a grand conversation hall with white marble floor with piles of sand likely brought up from winds from the desert floor below. Skylights cut into the ceiling in various spots allowed light to shine in and illuminate this grand hall. Atop a dais on the west wall was a huge brass-colored dragon completely spread out, its scales glowing from the droplets of sunlight from the sky that illuminated its massive body in motes of golden light. It glanced in the brothers' direction, hopped up on its hind legs, unfurled its massive red-tinged wings, and announced itself as Luminous, the Oracle of the Spire. "You are most welcome here," he spoke in perfect Kalashite. "You are in no danger so long as you follow my one rule, and that is, talk to me when I ask it of you." The brothers, awestruck in front of such a creature, agreed and struck a conversation up. Luminous questioned them about all sorts of things: Calimport, their lives, their gods, their place in the world, the weather, what they like to eat, deliciously lapping up the knowledge like a cat drinking milk from a dish. Finally, after almost 10 hours of this kind of conversation, Usama takes the opportunity to ask Luminous, "May we stay in this beautiful place with you?" Luminous grows stern and advises that admittance to the spire is not available through any amount of begging, pleading, or money for that matter. "Thank you for the knowledge you have shared with me, my friends. What is that you desire from me?" Rashad's eyes grow large as he says, "We wish to be wealthy like nobles." "Very well." Luminous motions, and a man in shining yellow robes with bright brass bracers leaves the room and returns bringing a large platinum necklace with diamonds, yellow diamonds, rubies set in it. It had to be worth at least a family fortune. "You may take this necklace and I shall return you safely to the ground below. All that I require as payment for this great gift is a living sacrifice. Either of you two will do. This is non-negotiable, But the choice is yours. Usama's face drops. He summons all his bravery and steps forward in the face of this huge dragon and begins to berate him for being deceptively nice and hospitable, only to be a psychopathic monster with such demands. Rashad silently watches on as a single tear rolls down his cheek, and he silently whispers, "My brother is my sacrifice." With his keen hearing, Luminous the dragon hears this, and his pupils dilate. He exhales a small dart of sleeping gas right into the nostril of Usama in front of him, who collapses onto the marble floor. Sacrifice accepted. Take him and prepare him, he motions to his disciples. Thank you, my friend. Be safe. He snaps his massive reptilian fingers, and Rashad finds himself, necklace around his neck, alone at the bottom of the spire, the sun just setting on the horizon. The reality of what just happens begins to overwhelm him as he begins his walk back to Kalimport. With the necklace around his neck, he feels powerful and rich, but with every step he feels even more solitary and the desert seems even more desolate. Until finally he could not walk anymore. It took his brain a second to realize why his feet weren't following its instructions. He again had blundered himself into the quicksand pit from yesterday. He struggled helplessly against the suction, made even more efficient by the extra weight around his neck, and before he knew it, his chin was touching the sand. The last word out of his lips were, "Usama, I." Meanwhile, his brother Usama awakens atop a pile of silk pillows. He is clean, he is shaven, and he is wearing the same yellow robes as the other residents of the spire. The massive dragon Luminous, crouched tightly to the ground, slenderly approaches him like a serpent. The dragon speaks, "You were sacrificed, and are now a permanent resident of the spire, one of my disciples. You may frolic, train, love, learn, converse to your heart's content, but this is your home from now on with us." Usama smiled and nodded in appreciation. "You are in no danger here as long as you follow my one rule. Talk to me when I ask it of you." Luminous, the Oracle of the Spire. So what did you think of that episode? Luminous, Oracle of the Spire. Here he is for the shelf. Thank you guys again for checking me out. If you do enjoy the content again, please like and subscribe and share this with your friends so we can help grow the channel together. If you watch the channel to paint along with me in the minis, I release the painting videos that are playing up here during each episode every Tuesday. And if you follow me on Instagram, you can also see midway through the week what I'm working on going into next week. Go to painttolife.com for links for all those things, and in the description below. Next week, we're taking a break from dragons again, although we're kind of coming to the end of them, and we're going to be painting a Behir from Norzal's Marvelous Miniature line, so that should be fun. If you are interested in picking up miniature painting as a hobby, I strongly suggest you do, and make sure you support your friendly local gaming store. They have all kinds of resources. You can get some paints, some brushes, and some miniatures to start with, and they'll guide you through that process of what you need to get started. It's a great thing. You should give it a try. Definitely put it on your bucket list and then scratch it off. Make sure you let them know GMA Tank sent you. So in closing, I just want to say, a couple of people had commented that I continually wear these plaid shirts even though it's into June at this point. It is kind of a thing I started and I just want to keep going with for continuity's sake. However, you should also take a look at where I live. So I'm going to take my camera around and show you right now that despite it being June, this is the weather outside. Anyways, I'm GMA Tank. We'll see you next week. Wash your hands, people.